A British business titan just said what no politician dares admit. Britain isn't wealthy. We're broke. And his explanation for why Brexit failed. Absolutely explosive. Welcome back to News Prime UK. I'm about to show you how one man destroyed his career to expose the truth about modern Britain, and why his warning for 2025 should terrify every voter in this country. Before we dive in, if you want political analysis that doesn't sugarcoat the mess we're in, hit subscribe. This channel exists because the mainstream won't tell you this stuff. His name is John Longworth, and if you don't recognise it, you should. Because this man didn't just watch British politics from the sidelines, he lived it. Director General of the British Chambers of Commerce, member of the European Parliament, the guy who travelled the Amazon hunting for soybeans during Britain's supermarket revolution. He's seen British business from Bolton to Brussels, and what he's saying now should make Westminster shake. Here's his opening line, and it's a gut punch. The idea that Britain is a wealthy country is complete nonsense. Not struggling, not facing challenges, complete nonsense. This isn't some Twitter pundit throwing hot takes. This is someone who spent decades at the coalface of British enterprise, and he's calling it, Britain is in dire straits. But here's where it gets nuclear. His diagnosis of why Brexit hasn't delivered the boom everyone was promised. Savage doesn't even cover it. We won a revolution but left the establishment in charge, who did everything possible to frustrate it. Let that sink in. Britain pulled off one of the biggest political earthquakes in modern history, voted for change, and then handed the keys right back to the people who never wanted it in the first place. It's like winning a war and letting the enemy write the peace treaty. So how did we get here? Rewind to the 1990s. Longworth is jetting around the world for supermarket deals, and what he sees in China and India blows his mind. Real growth. The kind Britain hasn't experienced in decades. He remembers telling people back then, we need to load planes with British leaders and fly them to Asia so they can see what actual economic power looks like. Because back home, nobody had a clue. His conclusion was brutal. Britain's decline was accelerating, and we needed a completely different order of growth just to keep the NHS afloat. After years of visiting businesses across the UK, he became convinced British enterprises could absolutely dominate outside the EU if they were just set free. But there was a problem. The European Union's legislative burden was only going to grow, strangling British business with mountains of red tape that had nothing to do with Britain's interests. So when the referendum campaign kicked off, Longworth couldn't stay silent. And this is where it gets properly dramatic. He started visiting embassies to gauge reactions. What he found was eye-opening. In France, pure vitriol. At a dinner at the German embassy, he witnessed establishment figures openly plotting to undermine Brexit. He even clocked a senior BBC player being outrageously prejudiced against Leave. The whole experience left him disgusted. He gave a speech, walked out, and never looked back. When he decided to publicly declare Britain could thrive outside the EU, he knew his career was finished. And he was right. His stunts drew fury from Downing Street. Boris Johnson later called his treatment scandalous, but the damage was done. Longworth was suspended from the British Chambers of Commerce, shown the door for committing the cardinal sin of telling the truth. But here's where Longworth proves he's built different. Instead of backing down, he doubled down, joined Vote Leave. But winning the referendum wasn't enough. Together with Richard Tice, now Reform UK's deputy leader, he launched Leave Means Leave, a pressure group designed to make absolutely sure Brexit actually happened. And given what followed, that turned out to be brilliant foresight. Then came the Theresa May years. Longworth describes them with characteristic bluntness. Terrible. May tried to negotiate a deal Brussels could accept and Parliament could pass, and the whole thing collapsed into years of gridlock while the campaign for a second referendum gained steam. Britain had voted Leave, but leaving seemed impossible. By 2019, Britain still hadn't left. Longworth accepted Nigel Farage's invitation to stand in the European Parliament elections. The Brexit Party topped the poll. Suddenly, he was in Brussels, representing the very thing the establishment tried to bury. But even there, his conviction never wavered. He argues Britain only joined the EU out of desperation in the first place. The whole objective was to create a federal superstate, and Britain misunderstood this again and again. We should have either shaped it from the start or kept well clear. Then drama struck again. Longworth's relationship with Farage ruptured. He lost the whip for repeatedly challenging the Brexit Party's general election strategy. His argument focused on winning 20 to 30 seats, but his number one priority was getting Brexit done. He feared Boris Johnson's majority was under threat, And with it, Brexit itself could collapse. So what did he do? Joined the Conservatives. The Tories won a landslide. Brexit was done. Mission accomplished, right? Not even close. Longworth was absolutely dismayed by Johnson's premiership. Yes, Boris got Brexit done, but in every other way, a disaster for the country and the Conservatives. He caused what Longworth calls the Boris wave of migration. Utter disaster. He pushed net zero. Another utter disaster. The man who helped deliver Brexit watched in horror as the government squandered every opportunity. And now, here we are in 2025, and Longworth is sounding the alarm again. He hasn't decided which party he'll back, but he's terrified the centre-right vote will split, and Labour will win again, potentially with Lib Dem help. His warning is stark. It's absolutely essential all parties on the right put the national interest first, because Britain is going to be ruined, and if they don't, it proves they're made of personal ambition and power-seeking. Nothing more. His view of Starmer's efforts to reset relations with the EU, utterly pathetic. He sees it as an echo of Edward Heath's original push for membership. Another act of despair. Starmer is cozying up to Brussels, giving away concessions while getting nothing in return. It's a damning assessment, and coming from someone who's watched UK-EU relations for decades, it carries serious weight. One of Longworth's core arguments is that Britain has been led by people with zero business experience, and politicians could actually learn enormous amounts from supermarkets. Stay with me, because this is brilliant. Supermarkets face brutal competition and survive through extreme efficiency and championing customer interests. Whitehall? No competition whatsoever. Before supermarkets became what they are now, manufacturers dictated to consumers. Now supermarkets act as advocates, telling manufacturers what to make. It changed the entire dynamic. Imagine if government worked like that, actually responding to what people need rather than what politicians think is best. Longworth grew up in Bolton in a terrace house next to a mill. His father served in the RAF and managed a dairy. John became the first in his family to go to university. When Keith Joseph, Margaret Thatcher's intellectual guru, spoke at his university in front of a rowdy crowd, young Longworth was electrified. He calls Joseph a genius, amazingly inspiring. That moment shaped everything that followed. Today, his great fear is the UK getting locked in an economic doom loop. But here's the hope. His experience of seeing Britain escape the nightmare of the 1970s fuels his belief that better days are ahead. And he's got a specific prescription. He argues one thing alone would transform the economy: scrapping net zero, start drilling North Sea oil and gas, tap into Britain's underground energy reserves with fracking, combine that with shrinking the state and cutting taxes, and he believes people would be amazed how quickly things change. Right now, he chairs the Independent Business Network, championing family-owned businesses with the mission of seizing the opportunities Brexit provides. This is a man who knows speaking your mind comes with a massive cost. His career proves it. But he relishes his freedom and has genuine ambitions for this country. Does he want to stand for election again? His answer is pure Longworth. No. But if you want to put me in the House of Lords as business spokesperson, I'll accept that reluctantly. But that's highly unlikely to happen. Even discussing his own future, he can't resist dry humour mixed with brutal honesty. So here's what we're left with. John Longworth's story is a masterclass in what happens when someone with real business experience looks at British politics and decides the emperor has no clothes. He risked everything to back Brexit, watched it get delivered but botched in implementation, and now he's watching politicians make the same mistakes all over again. Whether you agree with him or not, you can't deny the man has been consistent. He's been warning about Britain's decline since the 1990s, fought for Brexit when it could have cost him everything, and he's still fighting for the economic transformation he believes Britain desperately needs. The question now is whether anyone in power is actually listening, because if Longworth is right and Britain really is broke, rather than the wealthy country everyone pretends it is, we need serious course correction. Fast. And if he's right that Brexit failed because the establishment who opposed it were left in charge, then that's not just a political problem. It's systemic. It's about whether Britain can actually deliver the change its voters demand, or whether the system is fundamentally designed to resist it. Right, that's the deep dive. Now, I want to hear from you because this matters. Is Longworth right that Britain's in dire straits? Did leaving the establishment in charge doom Brexit from the start? Or is this just one man's bitter view of how things turned out? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if this analysis gave you something the mainstream news won't, do me a favour, hit that like button and subscribe to News Prime UK. We're building something here, a community that refuses to accept the sanitised version of British politics. More hard-hitting analysis coming your way soon. I'll catch you in the next one.